Welcome to TradeTheNBI.com. This is Jonas Reporters for the 4th of June. Well, we dipped slightly below the ABM yellow, and it finally caught a bid right as it got below there, kind of based, and then popped back above it. Pre-market's already done the same thing. We tested the ABM level, so that's providing support. Not surprising given the date, because you're looking at new fund money coming in, and they've got to put that money to work somewhere. We've been in this weakness with the ES. It hasn't been horrible because the white continued to fade pretty fast, but now down to a daily 2.69, meaning that you're likely to revisit the close of wherever this is at, which is not that bad considering you're already above the 76 and just shy of 100. So market's doing okay. We've been in this continuation. As long as you have that orange is caught between the cyan and magenta, usually does exactly what it has been doing, which is in this case is straight across. What we recognized was the NASDAQ was the weaker party. It had been in a much more dramatic decline setup, and sure enough, it responded exactly like that. I mean, it's already at the 61%, so it's been suffering, particularly too from a weak shakeout as well, and so we kind of expected that. It didn't have that big a drawdown on the ES, and that most likely is the suggestion that we're getting a rotation out of tech into some of the more stable S&P 500 companies. Could be cyclical changes, preparations for stagnation in the economy, or just some rebalancing. There can be plenty of reasons for it, but it's significant because tech stocks have definitely taken a hit. From a Eurozone, the expressed weakness of the Eurozone causing a little bit of difficulties for people to be excited about wanting to move into Euros. And so a little bit of fade back. Of course, the Fed will step in when necessary. We expected this positive extreme to be retraced. We have another one right down in the 120, 06 range. Another penny away from there, but still very elevated given the more recent, but this could be an indication that maybe some of the budgetary goals and stuff like that, and even the infrastructure things won't get passed or are still going to be delayed, in which case you're not going to have the amount of money pumped into the economy that they expected, and well, you get a little pullback from there. I've been throwing in these, and I get a lot of hate messages because some people just love Bitcoin. I don't really care one way or another. My point is that once the futures were set up, and we talked about this when this originally came online, that you would have algorithms start running the setups. And is there any coincidence that we picked a 34, 300 range and then a 39.4? They're not significant, even number points, but oh boy, isn't it amazing how exactly, we're fitting between those markers from way back before. No shock at all. And we knew that we were coming down. We had the spike of the white MBI over. It's like, okay, we know we're heading back to the zero. It's just a function of the way the algorithms are set up and just being able to see it as it takes place. And we just take advantage of understanding it. It's not a personal thing because everyone tells me Bitcoin's going to 500,000, million, 5 million, whatever. I just know it's not happening. In the next day or so, given what we're seeing from the readings, we knew exactly what was going to happen, and we're still in an express weak position, despite the fact that we're at this super decline mode. You might get a pop back up before, but still pretty clean. I did the same thing, more people unhappy about because they love Tesla or whatever. Of course, he's on the outs given the this change of heart on Bitcoin as far as being accepted. But again, white over magenta, pretty darn clean. For me, it's like boom, as soon as you cross over below DOC steel below the cyan right there, boom, you knew that it was going to start to pick up, and the expectation was to move back towards the zero. So it was not any difficulty in understanding how that concept works. And I just thought I'd point those out so that you can see that if it does interest you to be in those different stocks, you can certainly play the option games and stuff like that very effectively, understanding how these setups work. From an intraday standpoint, we had the weakness early. Could even take it slightly before then because you had the white over and the magenta. We talked about that one, and that continued to fall. I was pointing out that in some cases, after you end up ending your little pink dots, usually between the 3 to 5 bars is about where you're going to see the low. What I'm looking for in this particular case when I stop seeing those dot setups is where does magenta take over? Is it above yellow? And then once it starts pivoting up pretty well, saying, hey, at a minimum, if I'm not prepared to go long, I want to be thinking cover. And, certainly, that's going to keep you much lower because at that point, right here where it pivots up with the NBI, yes, you can argue, hey, I don't have a DSC steel reset or anything. When it does pop above 13.5, you certainly do, because that's the equivalent of it coming from underneath. And really ugly shakeout, what that just tells me is that, hey, I got a good chance that we're going to get a pop and I'll be able to attack it again. And the beauty is we'll be able to see where that peak is. And in this case, got it right here with the white moving above. And it was just a matter of, hey, give me that breakdown. And whether it's this bar or the next bar, either one, you finally have crossed over. Critically, you got the steel dipping below cyan, and that expressed the weakness. You retrace the low, rinse, repeat, and keep doing it. And we noticed as that was going, magenta staying above white, hey, that means a continuation. So even when I get this little teeny pop, it's like, okay, that's going to be short-lived. Oops, that was an accident. Put that back. I think I'm in snap mode. Good. When you're in snap mode, it just takes you right back to the close of the bar. But I was going to say from the little orange-gray and little green dots right there, 78 dipped down to, only 75. 3 points, but you'd have to be quicker on the trigger because as soon as that magenta crossed back above, it's off to the races. And in this particular case, magenta staying over the whole time, you knew that was going to have a longer trend. And even when this popped in, yes, you can take it, but as I warned, it'd probably be short-lived. I mean, this is a full reset. This is weak, yes, below the negative 13, but as soon as it pops back above, you're going to get a little bit of a pop into that. From my standpoint, if I'm considering the 50K and I think that things are overall weak, this is where I'll start to add in as I get pops towards the 100%. Usually I'm looking for like 2/3. And in this particular case, that happened to be right around the 4,200 range. So it was sort of convenient. It doesn't always happen in those exact ones, but eventually we ended up with the white spike. A little bit of an increase, but as soon as it crossed below, started attacking it right up at the peak right there, expecting a return to the 0%, which it promptly did. Very clean, very effective. And then pretty much stayed in a weakness mode with the white above. Gets a little murky when you get into these setups. I was not happy with the fact that we weren't getting steel crossing back below, but we ended up with a continuation straight down with yellow, blue, all of them, and so even in the after hours it stayed pretty weak, breaking down into a new low, and then from there you got magenta back over, which is what we're seeing right now, and that's the basics. So all good. This is the Dealcon Paint A. As I was pointing out, I'm making some of the changes in my C program that will incorporate some of these dots, working on the language to get the blue ones to come in, and that way I can leave out some of the exclusions for when we get into this sideways muck. It's not bad, but if I'm going to stick with that. It's like whether you're short or long here from this sideways setup, you can be profitable on a peak as well as a decline, that you're going to face a little bit of heat simply because of what we talked about with that magenta riding over. It's not incorrect. It's just having to manage the risk to reward and whether the expectation is worth it. In this particular case, too, we knew we had a ton of positive streams going all the way back down to that 4180 range, and filling that back in well, in this post market. Not a surprise. So it did exactly what it's supposed to do. It just they don't care how long it takes, and you have to get used to the understanding that it will get there. They're just not going to do it when it's convenient for you. They're just going to do it based on when they have their imbalances and can take advantage of it. As always, though, I will keep posting on the Skype chat. Trade well. We'll talk to you later.